our best music happens when we can take that and then all sit in a room together and try to figure out, how we can all put our little stamp on it.
Yeah.
Which took years to figure out the process, because like there's times where you got to realize like, oh man, like these two or three people are like really in a zone right now, and maybe I'm not understanding exactly what they're hearing, or I'm in a bad mood or whatever. I need to like remove myself for like 30 minutes and go take a walk, and then come back with like the killer lyric that's gonna like make the second verse or something. So knowing how to like come in and out and navigate those spaces.
You're listening to the Behind the Village podcast. Our guests today are Cole Mendez and Jacob Thompson from the Free Label. Cole and Jacob, very nice to meet you guys, and thank you for coming into the podcast, right? You guys are part of the Free Label band.
We're 2/6. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. 2/6.
2/6 of the Free Label, yeah.
So why don't you guys tell me a little bit about how the band got started?
Well, I mean, I remember meeting Josh in 2017, I think. I was going to York University, and I remember the day I met him. Like the moment I met him, it was just like, oh, God damn it. I want to be hanging around with this dude for at least the next decade of my life. And I think the band at that point was it was going by Sneak Easy. It was a different name. Different people, and I don't know if you've ever heard any of those tracks.
First time. Forgotten history here.
Yeah, but Matt was really the first guy in the band that I met, and we were all going to jazz school and hanging out. And I remember getting a message from him on Facebook being like, "Hey man, do you want to play a festival?" And I was like, I'd never played a festival at that point. It was like the biggest gig ever. And from that point, I was hooked. I remember we did that, and then we played Dundas Square for something back in the day. And
Nice.
Fun.
yeah, it just that started in like 2017, 2018, and then we were just kind of rolling, really figuring stuff out. Like looking back, it's so funny, like to think we're still doing so much of the same things, and I'm still doing the same kind of thing I was doing when I was like 16, 17, just like being in a band, making posters, making album art, making music videos. And it's like, now it's like, I guess we're better at it. We're doing it long enough. But yeah, and then Jacob and Jason. So it's Josh is the lead singer, Matt's the bass player. Malik started off as our drummer, actually, when we first started out. He's our guitar player now. He's a great drummer, but he's a really amazing guitar player. And we went through a couple different members, and then I think, what was it, 2022 or 3?
Yeah, end of 2022.
Yeah. When we got Jacob and Jason in, and that's when the band really became the band. You know what I mean? We spent so much time together between the studio and being on the road in the van and writing songs. Like, it's just, I don't know. This group of guys feels like what the thing is and always has been.
Yeah. Well, just looking at your music videos that I have, it just looks like a lot of fun. Like you guys have been doing lives or doing things on YouTube that I was looking at. It's just you guys just jamming and going along. Like it just feels like a very tight knit kind of band. Like it's really cool to see.
Yeah, I'm glad that comes across, because that's one of the big things. Like we have so much fun that sometimes I wonder, like, I was like, man, if we could just have a camera crew with us all the time to capture this. Like, I feel like it comes across well at our shows. And when people, meet us in real life or doing things like this. But I think, the internet thing, we're trying to do as much as we can to get that vibe across. So I'm glad it's there, but the real, it's just a little piece of how crazy and fun it is in real life.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What about yourself, Jacob? Like what, because you were more recent in terms of joining the group, and what was that process like for you?
Yeah, it was a bit of a whirlwind. Yeah, I was originally just subbing in as like a hired gun, and then they decided they really wanted a guitar player for whatever reason.
Part of it, I had to leave the band for a couple months for like family stuff, and me and Jacob have known each other for like our entire lives. We started going to like church choir together when we were like 5 years old, and he was the first person I thought of to be able to step in. One, because he's an amazing musician, but more than that, I knew he could hang with the guys, and I knew that the moment that Josh and Jacob met, it was just going to be a disaster for everybody else.
Excellent. It's what you want.
Yeah. No, it was great. It was great. I remember the moment that Josh we were partying, right? And he stumbles into my room. He's like, "Hey man, you're in the band now, right?"
That was it.
And I was like, I don't know. We got to. And he's like, "Okay, good. At least." So here we are. Yeah.
Amazing. So you're both I'm not a musician, so I'm trying to figure out the right word. You're both keyboardists.
Yes.
But you're different in what you do for the band. So what is it?
Well, Cole is a keyboard artist and I am a guitarist.
Uh-huh.
A guitarist.
Yeah, that's my main axe, you don't see too many of them around these days.
Yeah, that's true.
Someone's got to do it.
Who are your biggest influences on the guitar, Jacob?
Jan Hammer is a big one for me. I think he's one of the best to do it. Edgar Winter, of course.
No, dude, I don't.
Yeah. Wait, these are famous guitar players, dude. There's a lineage to this,
Glad to see you're placing yourself in the tradition.
That's right. Trying to take the place of the modern guitar guy, carrying on the sacred tradition.
That's
right. But there's
yeah.
honestly not many of us. It's few and far between.
So why guitar?
Well, I've always been always spiritually drawn to the instrument.
Okay, well, it's funny because, I mean, when Jacob was my replacement for a little bit. I mean, you were mostly playing piano, I guess, right?
At the time.
Yeah, but we also have Jacob and I used to jam quite a bit, and you've had a guitar. When did you get your first guitar?
2010, actually, I got my first guitar. Yeah.
So there's a picture of Jacob and I, and we're both 17 and 18 or something, downtown Orillia, jamming on the street. I'm playing keys and he's playing guitar with his mullet and everything.
Amazing.
Which I'm growing back out now, by the way.
Excellent.
Everything comes full circle, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
So we've been doing this longer than it seems.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's
and
crazy
talking about that, I was going to say, talking about that, you guys, you mentioned that you were in Orillia. You guys are local here, from here?
Yes.
Yeah, we're in a basement in Washego right now. I moved down to Toronto for a while for school, and I think the band kind of started down there, but we got to a point where we were touring so much, and it just became such a hassle trying to sublet the apartment all the time and doing all this stuff. I was like, man, when I'm home and not on the road, I actually want to be home. So yeah, moving back in with my parents has been amazing. One, because I like my parents a lot and they're super chill, but it means that when I come home, I get to be in the house that I grew up in, be in nature. The only downside is you got to drive 2 hours to get down to Toronto every other day just to keep everything moving. But so when we can do stuff like this, it's great.
Yeah. This will always be home for us, though. We love this place so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
I could never imagine another place taking that spot.
So what was it like, I guess, growing up? I'm assuming that you guys wanted to be artists from a very young age, growing up here and trying to make it, right?
Yeah, Cole especially, he won the Young Artist Award, which I myself was never nominated for.
Is that some kind of Kiwanis thing or something?
It's a little bitterness.
Clearly showed a lot of artistic promise from a young age. So.
That was the ODAC Emerging Artist Award. I remember that.
Yeah.
That was cool. That was a long time ago now. I'm not emerging anymore.
Right. Yeah. No, you're full on artist. Yeah, you made it, dude. Yeah.
This is making it,
This is it.
Wow. This is great. Honestly, I was sitting in this room a couple days ago. I don't know if you can see the amount of gear it's kind of all beside the camera. But I was thinking about when I had this room when I was 16 and I had like bunk beds and random stuff. And now it's like a full-time studio room with gear that I could never imagined having, like a Juno 106 and a pianette. And I got a organ that I don't know if I'm allowed to say this on the internet, but
Say it, dude.
I don't know if you guys are familiar with Lance Anderson. He's a local legend, an international legend on the B3, and he was my first kind of jazz teacher, and he taught Jacob as well.
Yeah.
Just a killer player and a really, really nice guy. He's got a show coming up at the Stephen Leacock House on the 28th, actually. You guys are
Nice.
worth going to.
Well, we're at the time, yeah, he was a big mentor to both of us growing up. Yeah,
Very
and
cool.
like I think the only dude around here that we could look up to who had actually done the thing and had done the things musically and artistically that we both aspired to doing at the time. Yeah.
So he hooked us up with an organ back there, like a B3 style organ. That's been an amazing addition to this room. And yeah, so where are we going with this? Just artistry. Yeah, I mean, it's funny, this microphone that I'm holding too, I got at a basement sale at St. Paul's church just a couple
Nice.
days ago. And that's the church where me and Jacob met, and we were in cherub choir and going through that whole process. And Blair Bailey over there was instrumental to our development. And yeah.
But
Yeah, that's pretty
we've
awesome.
just we've always been performing like our whole lives, and we've always been like since the beginning we've been performing together as well, whether vocally or on our instruments or in other capacities. So.
I mean, I remember like my parents aren't really musicians, but on my mom's side, there's definitely a musical streak, but it was really my dad who like forced me into piano lessons early. And I always kind of wondered, like, why? And I didn't really enjoy it for the first couple of years. But then you get a couple of years in, you're doing all this classical stuff, your fingers develop, and you're like, okay, well, now this is fun.
Yeah.
And I always learned more by, just sitting down at the piano and trying to figure things out and like being like, oh, these two notes sound good together. Oh, these two notes sound kind of weird. Like, and just kind of figuring it all out. I remember getting like a 53 in grade 10 math and being like, okay, probably not going into the sciences.
Well,
the door has closed. Yeah.
And then by that time, I was like, I guess I'm going to do this music thing like full on. And I told my parents, like, I'm going to go to school for music. And they're like, what? I'm like, this is the only thing I know how to do. This is the only thing you guys like taught me how to do. It's like literally the only thing I know. I'm not qualified to do anything else.
Yeah, what did you expect? We're not doing any after school math programs.
Yeah. Although, and I remember we both went to the University of Toronto Jazz program. And the single best piece of advice that I got there, it was like the first day you're walking in and the professor goes, if you guys can do anything else, do that. But if you can't and you're determined to like live this musician life, then we'll show you how to not suck at it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So what does that, I guess, look like or feel like now, for both of you kind of committing to that aspect of being a musician, and that's what you do. And what is that? What does it feel like?
It's a strange thing. And I it's something I think about a lot is that I think the musician is one of the true classless professions, and that you have highly successful, like high income musicians, like say like Beyonce or one of these big acts, right down to like people performing in the local community center basement. But we can both be professional musicians. You know what I mean? Yeah. And file our taxes as musicians. And it's one of the widest income gaps, I think, of any profession. And you see that when you're just living day to day as a professional musician. Like sometimes you're, sleeping on a couch in the basement of some dude's apartment that you barely know. And then the next day you're like at some villa in Miami partying with these dudes who own helicopters and who know Kid Rock. And it's just like the transition day to day is just wild, like you're just hanging. Like we played, we were lucky enough to play Richard Branson's private birthday down in the Caribbean We got invited to play over in the Kingdom of Bahrain. So we're
Really?
like rubbing shoulders with like really like high class people. But then the next week we'll be like
We'll be like in a motel in like the middle of Idaho. Just like on a bed that's mostly springs.
Yeah. just watching the van to make sure nothing gets stolen. And so it puts you in this place where you're like he was kind of mentioning before, like we're doing a lot of the same things. And you ask that question, like, well, have we made it? You can look at a lot of these accomplishments. Like we're also lucky to have a billboard in Yonge and Dundas Square promoting our latest album, Songs for Sienna, which came out last fall. And got to do like amazing things, like play Canada Day for almost like just like maybe 5,000 people downtown Vancouver, and then the next month we're like, oh geez, we need to book more shows. We need to we need to do more, right, to make things happen. So it's huge kind of state of limbo always. But that's a part of what it means to be a musician and part of the ride. So, and we're definitely
really cool.
here for that.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of thinking, just looking at it, because I've never actually thought about it, but it's true. Like a lot of people I think romanticize the idea of being a musician, and like, you're famous and you own like 10 cars and like 2 helicopters and all these kinds of things. And then, like you said, there's a very wide gap. But we're also always told that being an artist is one of the hardest things, to actually break through and to do all these things. So there's this weird like thing happen in popular culture where you're seen as like, look at all these people with money, and then, but you're not gonna make it yourself.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that is such an interesting dichotomy, and it's really month by month. You're like, oh man, it's like everything's happening right now. This is amazing, right? Like the peak of like everything. And then like 6 months later, you're like, okay, wait, like what? And maybe part of it is just like, getting used to different levels of or progress in the career. Everything seemed like before you do something, it seems impossible. And then once it happens, it's like it was always supposed to happen and nothing else could have ever happened.
Right.
So,
yeah.
But I'm
That's
very
awesome.
grateful for the things that have worked out in my life to allow me to live this kind of lifestyle, even with its drawback. It's not for the faint of heart. You know what I mean? You got to be pretty resilient sometimes, but the upsides are like amazing,
huge.
Yeah,
huge. The downsides are
also
devastating.
This is 2 ends of the spectrum.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's a world of extremes out here, in every way.
Was there a moment that felt like a turning point for the group of you? Or was it kind of a series of things happening, like you said, where it was like, oh, wow, like, whoa, there's traction,
I think once we had Jacob and Jason, and like, I mean, Jason is one of my favorite drummers in the city. Like no offense to everybody else,
Every
but
other drummer that
every
you
other
know.
drummer, I'm like,
You're making a lot of people upset here.
But
I have a lot of drummer friends, all right, and they're going to be listening to this. For the record, I think you're all great. All right.
Yeah.
No, Jason's pretty good though. He's pretty good.
The opinions.
Okay, the problem with drummers. There's some drummers that you can't pay to not overplay. You know what I mean? And Jason is the perfect balance of like having so much technical skill, so much virtuosity, but also having the restraint and the maturity of like knowing when to do that and when to just settle into the groove and just like feel great. And so once we had that as a foundation, and then Jacob coming in as an additional vocalist, and what the guitar really does is fill out all the things that, like, the way I think about it is, for me on the keyboard, I'm emulating more keyboard instruments. So I'm doing like pianos, Rhodes, organs, clavs. And Jacob does some of that as well, but he's also like an entire synthesizer with crazy leads and pads and a brass section and a string section. It's like having, 5 more members of the band just with the guitar.
Yeah, I do everything else.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just do
So
everything
really,
that. the things that no one else wants to do. So I'll be playing like the string part while singing the third harmony, while two-stepping, just filling in all those.
And what makes that really effective too is that, like, one thing we really pride ourselves on is that, you know, everything with us is completely live. And I mean, we don't even have, you know, any kind of like auto tune or anything on stage. Like, everything is as raw as possible. And Jacob really kind of acts almost like what maybe the backing track would be if we wanted to have extra stuff going on. He really fills in all that stuff, and then obviously like the solo breaks and all the crazy other shit that you do. But yeah, no, I would say that Jacob and Jason joining made it feel like, okay, this is undeniable. If we can get this out into the world, then this will be a thing. But that's the hard part, especially taking 6 guys on the road. You know, you got to eat, got to sleep. It's not there's a lot of moving parts to getting out there. But also the commitment level, you know, from everybody from that point just reached a new level of dedication.
Right.
Not that we weren't
That's awesome.
taking it very seriously the first couple of years, but yeah,
Yeah.
that was the turning point.
Because, you know, like, turning point. Because, well, I was just going to add on, you know, the bigger the band, the harder it is, right, to make everything work. That's why so many record labels these days just find a singer that they like and just push single artists.
One person. Yeah.
Because you make way more money, right? It's one person's hotel and food and living expenses, and put them on tour, and then, you know, it's way more profitable. But I would like to think that with more people on stage and without using tracks, like you say, we can deliver a more memorable and exciting and immersive musical experience. All right.
No, I like it, and your sound, you know, is quite interesting. Like, it's quite unique. Like the songs that you guys put out is really cool. How did you guys find your sound? I was trying to figure out. I was trying to research what your sound is like, and it said something like it's 70s disco, 90s R&B, and like funk and stuff like that. Like, it's a mixture of a bunch of different things. So just tell me about it.
I mean, part of the reason that it's called the free label is because it's impossible to put a label on it. And
Right.
we always felt comfortable, like, just making the music that we wanted to make and not getting, you know, boxed into like a thing. But at the same time, you want to have a cohesive kind of, you know, body of work and statement. And that really came about over the years just by playing a lot together and trying to figure out like what we all. Matt said it best the other day, actually. Matt said, like, what is it that we can do that nobody else can do, like individually and collectively?
Right.
And that's something that's taken years to really like hone in on. And there's lots of little, you know, musical techniques and things and influences that we've all brought together. But what makes it a band too is that we write together. You know, somebody will come in with something, some kind of chord progression, some kind of theme, some kind of idea, but our best music happens when we can take that and then all sit in a room together and try to figure out, you know, how we can all put our little stamp on it, which took years to figure out the process, because like there's times where you got to realize like, oh man, like these 2 or 3 people are like really in a zone right now. And maybe I'm not understanding exactly what they're hearing, or I'm in a bad mood or whatever. I need to like remove myself for like 30 minutes and go take a walk and then come back with like the killer lyric that's going to like make the second verse or something. So knowing how to like come in and out and navigate those spaces took some time, but yeah, it results in a interesting blend of genres for sure.
Yeah. And how, like, it's interesting, you guys being part of the band right now. It's really interesting to hear that, you know, everybody is putting their effort, like trying to have their stamp in the song, and like, you know, different things that are unique to you, but still kind of complement everything, right?
The other thing is that I've made solo music in the past. You've made solo music. And at least speaking for myself, like, it's a lot easier to write just sad, depressing music, especially like by yourself. Like it just, I don't know, like there's
We
Yeah.
both have large catalogs of sad, depressing music. Shout out to Shagwagon. Shout out to Payless Q. Shout out to Grant Ulysses. Many more.
But one thing with the band is like we freely, that's just not the vibe of the band. And that's been a tricky thing to navigate for me sometimes, is like making music that makes people feel good and want to dance, and without being like shallow, you know what I mean, at the same time.
Cliche or
Yeah.
trite or yeah.
So I think that's an ethos that we also really follow, is like, how can we make music that makes the world a more enjoyable place to live, at least for the duration of a song or a concert. And that's a big thing with our concerts
Love
too,
that.
is that we really want that to be a place where, you know, you leave, there's so much crazy stuff going on in the world. If we can leave that at the door for an hour, and maybe you don't need to know what the person beside you believes or what they're going to do after the show, but like in this moment, we can just be human beings in bodies, dancing, you know, and just being a society again.
Yeah. 100%, because I think a lot of that is missing now. And as you said, there's so much contention and polarization and, you know, all these things happening in the world. And I really feel that we need more of that for sure. I agree with you.
But I love how deep, I guess, the thought process goes in how you guys are thinking about how to create music or how to make someone feel when they're in a concert or when they're hearing your songs. You know, it's something that a lot of people just don't realize, just how much not only technique and experience and knowing how to do songs and whatever, but also the thought process that goes into what kind of, you know, feeling, what kind of songs, what kind of idea do I want to leave in the world, right? What kind of imprint do I want to leave in the world? I think that's really, I think key, but also really interesting to actually hear from an artist kind of talk about that.
One question I had, I wanted to touch on your latest album, Sienna. And is that out and released now?
It is out and released. Yeah. Yeah, you can listen
Very cool.
everywhere.
And what was that timeline or process in terms of creating that album? How quickly did it come together? Was it any particular challenge with this one, or?
Well, I think the album really started coming together, and I think the band started to really come together when we went on our first tour out west in a Toyota Sienna. And this was right after I joined the band. And when we went out there, we were already working with a few demos, but also started kind of coming up with lyrics and writing new ideas, all in that car, which was cramped, might I add. It was 6, you know, pretty big dudes with a ton of gear in the back, and we're all sitting like this, driving through the mountain ranges of the West. So it was a pretty memorable time, and that's when we first all started kind of hanging out and gelling as a group. And so that just seemed like the most fitting name, is because that's when we really started to be a band together, and that's when a lot of these songs kind of came together, like on the road.
How long was it from that until the record came out? It was at least a good year. We recorded the songs at a studio in Montreal. That was a great experience. That studio was just so vibey. Actually, if you go on, we have a live session on YouTube of, it's a mix of songs from the album and then some other older songs live at Dan Duran Studios. But that's actually the place where we recorded the majority of the record. But yeah, it's a cool process too, like the way music's made nowadays. Like you tend to like make a demo in like a basement like this, or in the car, or in a hotel, and then take parts of that into a studio because you need to record drums better or do this better. And then you listen back and you're like, oh man, there's a certain magic in that demo, in that the way that you could hear like the background of the hotel or something, and you drag some of that audio back in, and it becomes this big, like, I don't know, just mashup of different places that you've been and different places that you've recorded. And that's, I think, something that you can hear a little bit more on Dancing on Your Own, and Got a Little Something for You as well. And I think will be even more apparent on our forthcoming releases. But yeah, it's a trippy process for sure.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, for sure.
I also have
So-
like versions, like so many songs. I have like, version 1, version 2, version 27, version 36. This is the one for real this time.
Yeah.
It's done. And then it just keeps going.
And then you go back to version 3 and you're like, oh, that was actually it.
That was the best part.
yeah, that was it all along.
How do you know when, I guess, the final mix is the one, or if you've gone too far? Or
You never know.
You just
You
stop.
never
You just
know.
have to you put
You
it
have to
out.
cut yourself off. Yeah. Yeah.
At some
Yeah.
point, it's just release what we have. I think it's good enough.
Yeah. And then you put it out, you're like, it's okay. And then you come back in 3 months, you're like, yo, this tune was amazing. Yeah. Like, you gotta give it time though, right? Like musical perception is so strange. Like how much it varies from performing or recording to listening back to what you recorded. It's like just like 3 chords can sound like so many different things based on your vantage point.
Right.
And time, right? So
Mm.
That's pretty cool. You guys are playing in the Mariposa Folk Festival this year as well,
yes,
right?
we are so excited to be doing that. Yeah, we can't wait. We've both been going to Mariposa every year for our whole lives. So this is a
That's
real homecoming for us. I know the band has played it 2 times before, I think.
I think in 2019, they do like a Mariposa showcase where bands like audition, and we actually won that in that year. So we got to perform through that, and then I guess we did an all right job. So they invited us back a couple years later to do the pub temp for real. But
Awesome.
And I was at that show actually.
really,
Yeah,
Oh,
since I'm
Ah.
there
nice.
every year.
Yeah.
I thought, wow, this is a great band. This is pretty good.
you had no idea. What I was doing.
I can see myself here.
Yeah, exactly.
But
And do you know do you know your schedule yet for when you're playing at the festival?
we're
Saturday night,
Saturday night, yeah.
pub tent, be there.
Pub tent, Saturday night.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly. That's
And then
cool.
Sunday we're doing a workshop in the afternoon. I'm not sure exactly what time.
Oh, what's the workshop about?
I mean, the best part about Mariposa is that they have the main stage, they have the pub tent stage. Pub tent stage is the sickest, but but they also have all these little stages all around the grounds, right? Where what they do is they take 2 or 3 different artists and they bring them together to kind of collaborate in real time, like improvised. They might play. One band might explain the chords to a song and have the other band kind of join in or bring in another vocalist or a soloist. So I'm not exactly sure who we're going to be playing with yet,
Joining forces with.
but it's that's always such an amazing, like, just creative and artistic moment.
Yeah.
Because you're seeing something that's never happened before and will never happen again.
Yeah. Well, they
Yeah.
do so many cool, as you know, right? They do so many cool things at these stages. Like I saw there was this one stage just off to the side where Gordon Lightfoot is talking to maybe only like 50 people, and we're all like up close. And he's he's not performing. He's just kind of breaking down like how he wrote some of his songs, stuff
cool.
that would just
Yeah.
get like millions of views if it was, but that was like way back in the day. So no one's filming it. We're all just like, this is crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's another stage way earlier where Cole and I performed for this improvised dance group led by another Orillia local, Beth McKean, who's actually now doing some clothing design for us.
Nice.
Yeah, she. I don't know if you've seen any of our bell-bottom pants that we've been wearing recently. They've been 6 dudes going out in public, all wearing bell-bottom jeans, is definitely.
Yeah, we get a lot of cat calls for sure, which I love.
But yeah, Beth helped us out with that for our show at the Axis Club back in April, and we're going to be working together to do a number of things for Mariposa and then moving into the future. So that's yeah.
But when we
That's pretty
played
awesome.
with her, it was like maybe 45, 50 minutes straight of playing with nothing prepared. And Cole and I, that was another case where we didn't, we'd known each other, but I think at that time we hadn't played in a while. And so we both show up to this gig. She's like, okay, you're gonna play for about an hour straight. just follow me. We're good. We're gonna make it happen. So it's me and Cole at keys, and she's like, bring it up. We did. We're like, okay. And she's like, more, you know. And even, you know, not knowing him super well in that situation, we were still able to just improvise and make something happen for an hour straight, you know, with a bunch of hippies, you know, out there dancing and getting weird. So yeah, now we're
That's pretty awesome.
still doing the same thing.
There you go. Well, you both have to be pretty talented to just start riffing for an hour. So
we're okay. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So for me, that takes care of all the questions that I had written before. Is there anything that we might be missing?
What do you think, man?
Got to plug the music, you know, go listen to our latest release. We got Gals for You, Got a Little Something for You, and Dancing on Your Own. And, you know, come out to a show. We're traveling all over the place. We're before Mariposa, we're going to Electric Forest in Michigan. We're headlining the Winnipeg Jazz Festival just like next week. And there's a million things before and after that. If you go to our website, you can see all the dates. But yeah, come say hi. We're friendly people, and honestly, the live show is the place to be. If you like what you see on Instagram and you like the music, it's 10x.
It's even better.
Yeah.
It's even better. I know it's hard to believe, but it's even better.
And where can people follow you if you know your handles on your socials or your website?
Yeah, so the band is called The Free Label, but it's Free Label Love on just about everything: Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. I'm sure there's others.
Yeah.
Google it.
And obviously people can go find your music on Apple, Spotify, wherever they listen from, right?
And if you come to the show, you can get a vinyl. So that's
There you
also
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're planning on going to the Mariposa Folk Festival this year.
We'll be there
for sure. So we'll
come say hi.
We'll come say hi.
Yeah.
Definitely come out to that one. And that's the one other thing I'd like to say is that we're just so excited to be playing that show in our hometown for a bunch of friends and people from around here and people from all over. So it's gonna be a great time.
Yeah, amazing. Well, thank you guys very much for joining us. It was pretty awesome. Like I learned a lot about you guys. It's cool.
Sweet. Yeah, it's our pleasure. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for listening to the entire episode. All the links and info you heard in this conversation will be featured in the show notes on our website, villagermagazine.ca/podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, consider subscribing to our channels like YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you're listening from, so you never miss an episode. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.